Trustee Britz.
Here.
Trustee Bashaw.
Here.
Trustee Johnston. Here. Please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remove your head covering if you're wearing any, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started here with the approval of the minutes, at our last board workshop, the board requested to have our economic development specialist, Travis Gordon, address the board for this tonight's meeting. And Travis, you're on. Thank you for coming. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me. I'd like to talk to you all a little bit about grant writing and grant administration in the village. So what we've been doing mostly recently has been focused on grant administration. We've been meeting with and working with contractors and village officials in order to continue to ensure the existing projects in Fredonia are running as smoothly as possible. So this includes also attending all construction meetings for the Smart Growth project. There is one tomorrow, by the way, tomorrow at noontime, and there's a public portion of that at 1:30 p.m. Everybody's invited to attend that. It's very informative and should be pretty interesting. I've been attending those. I've also been interfacing very regularly with Empire State Development regarding any potential concerns with those projects relating to like seeker, historics, things of that nature, and primarily working on preparing grant utilization request paperwork, which Henry and the mayor and Elizabeth can attest to the fact that I send them many, many emails about this stuff. I've signed, asking for different documents from the village. These include submitting change orders, contracts, insurance documents, pay applications, budgets, copies of canceled checks, anti-bribery certifications that I have to obtain from every contractor for every application we put in, monthly project control reports, things of that nature, minority and women-owned business reporting, that sort of thing. So there's a lot that goes into that. It's about 100 pages per grant utilization request that we submit. And the reason why we do that is so that we can actually get the money for the grant into the village's bank account after the work has been completed. In terms of actual updates for the projects that are going on in Fredonia Streetscapes project, as you all know, has been moving right along here. We expect it to be substantially complete by spring of 2022. We're waiting on some approvals by DOT for the bump outs on Main Street. We're also communicating between the village and Empire State Development to ensure that access funds that we have in that grant can be spent on appropriate items relating to the original intent of the grant that was applied for. So these things would include streetscape improvements such as possibly sidewalks, surfacing of parking lots, things of that nature. I've been working with Scott Marsh to make sure that that's been going pretty smoothly, and hopefully soon here we'll be able to have some more updates on what the next project with that will be, which we're hoping to be some of the resurfacing of the municipal parking lot to the south of the Barker Common. Late last week, we also obtained a quote from the construction company that's been working on the Opera House for the updated seating in the Opera House. That's going to include new seats, and it's going to include an ADA compliant seating area for folks who have wheelchairs and things like that. They're going to build up a space that's going to be flat and able to have wheelchairs and things of that nature. Rick Davis is a great resource to talk to about what more is going on with that. But it's exciting that they were able to come back with a number that was less than what we had initially anticipated. The next step for that is that quote went to Empire State Development for their approval of it, ensuring that it is in compliance with the original intent of the grant. And then they will probably prepare a updated grant dispersal agreement that the village will need to review. The total amount, just so you know, total amount for that grant, that project, the Upper House, like the signage and all that stuff, in addition to the seating, is actually less than we had budgeted originally in the grant. So we're hoping that that moves forward smoothly. But again, we're looking to make sure that we use this money that the state has granted toward us for appropriate projects. So that was a project that was originally proposed by the village in the original bid request for proposals for the project that was initially rejected because of it would have cost too much as an alternate. But now we're including it as a potential change. So that hopefully will move quickly through the state's review, and we'll be able to get that going in the early next year as well. We've been coordinating with Rick to make sure that those seats would go in at a time that won't impact Opera House programming as well. We're also preparing paperwork to submit to ESC for a small grant to pay for the new Cherub in Barker Common. Been working with Alyssa and Anne-Marie on just getting that stuff together so that we can get that partially paid for. And we're also preparing final documentation reports and paperwork for the Parks project. And I've been working with Alyssa to get the documents for that, the canceled checks, things of that nature. And last week, I also assisted the village in connecting them with the bench manufacturer, Victor Stanley, in order to obtain quotes for replacing the benches that were hit by a car along Main Street there. And so we're working to make sure that that all gets squared away. So that is a lot of what's been going on in terms of grant administration. I wanted to also quickly discuss some of what I see is going on with the village. I do understand that there are concerns regarding the village's ability to seek grants and grant funding. And I have to say, I do agree that moving forward, the village and we all have to work together as a team to communicate as a team in order to be prepared for these funding opportunities. Last week, I hope you all received the email that I sent to you. I forwarded a preliminary report that has identified priority projects that are in no particular order. They're just a list of projects and potential funding sources. The list also includes potential pre-application needs for those potential projects. So things like seeker, things like public hearings, engineering studies, drawings, planning, that sort of thing. If you see funding opportunities that aren't on that list or know of a project that needs help that could be a good fit for funding, I strongly encourage you to reach out and let myself and your colleagues know about. I've had one-on-one meetings with several of you, in addition to numerous municipal leaders, and there's a wealth of knowledge out there about potential projects out there, but it would be helpful to get something scheduled to meet with each one of you individually as soon as possible, so that we can discuss your priority projects, the things that you would like to see funded, the things that the potential funding sources and things of that nature, so that we can get on the same page. And the same thing goes for department heads like police, fire. I'd really like to be able to meet with some of you to discuss these in greater detail, potential funding sources for street infrastructure, fire trucks, things like that. Like the needs of the village, we need to get them all down onto like one spreadsheet or something like that, and then start checking them off. Like what can we, matching a project with the funding source and going through the application process, going from there. As a reminder, my role with the village is to oversee the administration of existing grants and assist the village in identifying projects and funding sources. So facilitating that process, but it has to be a team effort here as well. I am, and I always have been, open to brainstorming new ideas, discussing potential projects, and assisting the village in preparing applications for funding. By meeting individually, I think we can get on the same page and work smarter on a lot of these funding opportunities. So with that, I'm going to open it up if anybody has any questions or comments, things of that nature.
Travis, how many grants have we applied for in the last year?
I think it's probably around 3 or 4. There were something along those lines.
How many have we received?
As far as I know, we haven't received word on the big one yet, but
Right.
We haven't received funding on any of those just yet.
Okay.
I should also say that it's not a guarantee that, like,
Certainly.
if you apply for a grant, it's not a guarantee, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell us about the infrastructure grant that's due November 22nd that is, I can't remember the initials, WEIS, what is it called? WEIA.
Yeah.
That's an annual grant, happens every year about the same time, right?
Yep. Yep. It's through the New York State Grants Gateway. And, yeah, I mean, it's an infrastructure grant. I will also say that there is a training on that scheduled for tomorrow as well.
Yes, there is. But knowing that it's there every year and knowing that it requires an engineering report, not a preliminary one that we can find, maybe you can find that out tomorrow at the training, but an actual engineering report, why haven't we been actively pursuing that infrastructure grant in the past year?
Well, I think we have applied for a couple grants along the vein of infrastructure. And again, this is something that really has to come from the village as well. You have to actively want to be pursuing these grants.
Okay. I think we want to make it clear that we want to pursue these grants. So we're not aware of them until we're told about them. And, you know, we heard that from one of our engineers, our contractors, Wendell, that even existed. Unfortunately, I was not aware that it was an annual grant. I think you're right about the communication. I don't know, and maybe I'm mistaken, but trustees, have you met privately or in a discussion with Travis at all in the last year? Neither have I. And the last thing, Travis, I just want to make clear here, I need some clarification in my mind. You are our grant writer, correct? Administrator and grant writer. Is that correct? Yes.
I do perform that as a function, yes.
Yes. And that's been your title since I've known that. I guess I want some clarification as to the reference of economic development specialist. We don't have that position in our village. It's never been created, and yet you've been referred to that. And I just want some clarification that in my mind and in our understanding, you are the grant writer.
I mean, that's only part of it. That's not actually my job title.
What is your job title?
My job title is principal at Urban Vantage.
What? Say it again. I'm
a principal at a company that I own.
No, I mean, what's your job title for the village? We have
I'm a grant administrator.
Okay.
And I have my contract in front of me. It doesn't say that. It says services provided,
Right.
but it doesn't say that there's a title associated with that.
Okay. I just want to clarify, the village does not currently have an economic development specialist. And so there's been reference to it, and I know that you've helped us a lot, and I understand that you administer and apply for the grants. And that's what our contract is with you. I just want to clarify that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there any chance that we can apply for the WEA grant? Can we get it in there? I know the training is tomorrow, but if an engineering study is required, is it possible to have one done and application completed by the 22nd of November?
I would like to get back to you on that because I also reviewed the application information, and the engineering study, like you said, it's not like a phase 1 or phase 2 or
Right.
something like that. It's a specific language or like phrase that they use. So
Right.
I want to get back to you on that. I think that theoretically it's possible. Again, if we have a project that we really like in mind, if we have a budget that we are interested in going with,
Right.
then I think if the engineering study is something that we can put together in that time, it may or may not be. It might be the engineering study that was proposed at the reservoir that would involve people actually using scuba gear to dive down and review the spillway and stuff like that.
Right.
If that's the case, I sort of doubt we're going to get there, right? But I'm going to find out about that, and I will be happy to let you know if that's a possibility. I do also know that I believe it requires a public comment. So that would be something that we would have to get on the schedule. So
A
I'll
public
have to
hearing?
verify. Public hearing, I believe so. I could be wrong. Maybe that was possibly
Okay.
optional. I'll have to get back to you on that. But
Okay.
definitely the engineering study, that's kind of a issue that we want to try to resolve
Okay.
prior to that. And then, you know, other grants are, a lot of those grants that I shared in that spreadsheet, they also are available annually or quarterly, or like ESD grants are available quarterly at this point. Like we should be pursuing and looking at some of those things as well. I also know that the county is interested in helping the village with anything that they can do to, in support of working with the Senator Gillibrand's office to get funding. And we also know that there is going to be infrastructure money coming in at some point. So, you know, having those projects being shovel ready in the sense of like everybody's on the same page, we have preliminary design, preliminary engineering, preliminary letters of support and things like that drafted up. That's something that we can do. But I do agree with you. Like, I certainly agree that like racing to the finish and changing the project at the last minute and stuff is not an effective way of going about grant writing, certainly. And so, like, you know, showing the community and showing the state or any entity that we're applying for funding that we have like a united vision and we have a project that we all are behind, that we have all been kind of focused on. We have the letters of support and things like that. That's going to go a long way in getting us a win in those grants.
Great. One last thing. That list of shovel-ready grant projects, so to speak, that you provided us, thank you very much for doing that. I think that in a workshop very soon, we should all have a discussion about that. And some of them are quite old, I think. And I think it may be time to update them, and maybe the focus has changed a little bit. But it would require us to have a conversation among all of us, and that is best achieved in a workshop. So maybe we could put that on the agenda sometime soon and discuss those projects, include our department heads input. But
That would be great.
thank you very much, Travis. I appreciate it. I don't have anything else.
Does anybody, any other trustee have any questions or any comments for Travis? Travis, first of all, I do. I think working with Rick and having Rick Davis with the Opera House spearhead his project has been instrumental in coming under budget and getting that project completed, and completed to the expectations that Mr. Davis had, and I appreciate you assisting him in that. This administration on this level and our department heads need to get together and to discuss priority projects and prioritize those. And that's the only way we can move forward on these projects. We can talk about grant funding all day, but if we don't have any projects that are identified and prioritized, it's basically, you know, fruitless to be talking about grant funding if we have no projects identified. So like what was just discussed, we will discuss those project ideas, identify those and prioritize those, and identify which grant funding opportunities and when those grant funding opportunities are due, and start working on if we need engineering studies like which was discussed. Those are a big thing. I'm not sure if any of those projects on that list are shovel-ready at this point, because some of the projects did have engineering studies back in 2017, 18, 19, and those studies are probably old at this point. So I appreciate your help in addressing the board tonight. Thank you, Travis. And if there's no other questions, thank you very much. This isn't the time for that, sorry. So thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
All right. We'll have approval of minutes, please.
Whereas members of this board present at this meeting have read the official minutes of the Board of Trustees' regular meeting of October 18th, 2021, and whereas members of this board have read the official minutes of the Board of Trustees' special meeting on October 20th, 2021, now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby approves the minutes as entered into the official minutes, and be it further resolved that the reading of the minutes be dispensed with.
It's been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden.
I'm gonna have to abstain. I did not attend the special meeting of October 20th.
Okay. Trustee Britz?
Yes.
Did you read the meeting?
Trustee Bashaw?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston?
Yes.
Okay, 1 second. Carried. Okay, well, public portion, please.
This portion of the meeting is for public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak once recognized shall stand at the microphone and state their name and address. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes if speaking for themselves, or 5 minutes if speaking on behalf of a group. I will ask the speakers to refrain from remarks that are in poor taste, slanderous, or not germane to any action taken or contemplated by the board.
Okay, before we start, when the public will address the board, when the time limit's up, I would just ask you to conclude your statement at that point. I'm not going to cut you off. I want you to conclude your statement, but we'll keep it to those time limits. So anybody willing to address the board, who would like to address the board, please step forward to the microphone and address the board.
Is this about all of the topics for tonight? Or
You can speak on anything,
is this about one of the topics that's on there?
not only for tonight, you can, as long as it's germane to village business.
Hello, my name is John Titus. I'm at 15 Maple Avenue in Fredonia, and I'm a professor at SUNY Fredonia. And I'll be speaking right now about the village plan to log the forests around the reservoir. So this is of great concern to me and many other people, because it is well documented that removal of vegetation, including trees and the construction of logging roads, are linked with increases in erosion and sedimentation. There's evidence that the same activity undertaken in the 1970s and 1990s is what led to the problems with sedimentation in the reservoir today. The forests surrounding the reservoir are located on steep slopes and, in many cases, on highly unstable soils that are particularly susceptible to landslides. These same forests are also quite diverse, with intact native understories, and some of the trees are quite old. As they stand, they do an excellent job of filtering rainwater, slowing down overland flow, and retaining sediments on site. The current major problem at the reservoir, aside from sedimentation created by previous timber harvests, is illegal ATV use. The logging roads constructed for the forestry operation, which may turn out to be the major cause of increased erosion if this project goes forward, will likely increase ATV use and further increase erosion. The forests around the reservoir are not overgrown or overmature. This does not occur in forests in the eastern United States. It is my understanding that this forestry project may have been sold to the village based on the erroneous idea that the reservoir's forests are overgrown or need to be cleaned up. This is not true. In fact, it would greatly exasperate problems. In addition, after logging, forests are often invaded by non-native species which do a very poor job of controlling erosion. Chautauqua County is home to a lot of forestry land and contributes its share to the nation's wood supply. Every place in the county does not need to be logged. A high-quality, diverse forest on steep slopes that protects the drinking water supply is not a good candidate for logging. The village does not have the expertise to monitor logging, so it will be impossible to ensure that responsible forestry occurs. Please reconsider your decision. It is too risky. The future of our drinking water supply depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Tracy Marafiotti. I live at 136 Newton Street here in Fredonia. Unlike Professor Titus, I am not a professor of biology or a botanist, but I am a citizen of Fredonia and have witnessed, like all of us who live here, the many times our water supply has been less than healthy for us, right? We've had lots of problems, frequently labeled as turbidity. Now, if my understanding of turbidity is that there are particles in the water that should not be there. Right? So if we are concerned about that, and it has been a problem, what we should be striving to do is to minimize anything that could possibly contribute to that and make it worse. None of us like going for, 3 weeks last year when we had to boil our water? Right? This is not something that we should have to do on a regular basis, and it really undermines the confidence that citizens have in our water supply, and unfortunately, sometimes in the people who are in charge of making decisions about our water supply. So I do ask that you please think through this carefully. I asked in letters to you that you consider getting someone who is an expert in forestry to come and give you advice on this, and not somebody who is hired by the foresting or timbering industry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that before we go on?
Sure.
Just as a point of clarification, just want to make the public know that we have responsibly hired and been in partnership with Forcon, who is a professional and expert forest management team. We have been in contract with them since 2019. We have a forest management plan that runs for 15 years. It's very responsible. It's very thorough. It takes into consideration that the forest projects would be next to our water supply.
So Forcon did this study that said
Yes,
that
they did a
the
plan.
erosion would not be a problem?
Forest management plan.
Okay, and do they stand to gain financially from this, from this?
They're our
timber?
managers. We contracted with them. Any expert
Okay.
that we would get our information from, we would pay.
Okay,
So-
right. Of
right.
course, we would pay for
Right.
expertise, but it seems to me that we need to keep in mind that we are asking people to tell us how safe this is when they are benefiting financially by telling us it is safe, even if it is not.
However, these are not the loggers. This is the forest management company. We hire loggers that we haven't hired yet.
So
These
this is
peop-
not the company that will be doing the timber harvesting?
Absolutely not.
Okay, thank you for that
Yes,
clarification.
and I just want to clarify that these are not our loggers. This is our forest management company, contractor.
And is that information available for the public
Absolutely.
as well?
Yes.
All right, thank
You can
you.
contact our clerk for that. But this plan has been in effect since 2019. It was presented to the board and was approved then. But because of COVID, it delayed. We had a letter in July or August, again, asking if we wanted to continue with the project that we had created. And we agreed to do that with this plan in place. And so it's been going on for the last couple of years, and COVID has kind of kept us apart, but it is very well managed. As a matter of fact, Mr. Titus, I spoke with Rick Constantino today, and he told me to send his regards and have you call him if you had any questions, because he says you're very familiar with him.
Because they do mark the trees, so they do crop it if logging occurs, which they would not, did not.
Right.
So it does increase the
We
cost.
pay them whether we cut the trees or not if they're marked, because it's part of the plan. So,
I'm not mistaken either, Forcon works with DEC to make sure that we're in compliance with
Absolutely.
everything around our watershed.
and with New York State best practices, they have to comply because it is located next to a drinking water source. There are all kinds of regulations, and not only that, but they have to see that the loggers comply as well. The agreement is that whatever logging company actually goes into here has to comply with those DEC and best practices of New York State because of the drinking water. So they have mitigated as much as possible in regard to the effect of our water supply. We're very cognizant of that. And I just wanted the public to know is that we have been responsible in talking to experts. We're not hiring loggers without a management plan or without managers. So please see this. I urge you all to read this. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Mayor, as if you have 10 seconds,
Sure.
I apologize. I just just want to ask, if this is something that we do go forward with, I do hope that the city will, or the town will also then do follow-up and make sure that we are preventing additional ATV use in that area, which is contributing to the erosion.
One of the things you want to watch on that is
Part of my
our,
report tonight is I'm working with 2 security companies now to process putting new cameras up at the reservoir. So we have a plan in place to protect our reservoir with updated camera systems.
Okay, thank you.
We have worked with Forcon for
Yes.
a lot longer than what you stated.
absolutely, it goes back, just this plant goes back to 2019, but
Right. There was
we've
a
been with them
approved plan in 2010.
yes.
And prior to that, I believe that the village had logged several times over the years that actually, while Mr. Dreo was the attorney. Is that correct, I believe? Responsibly with Forcon. So, you know, it is, well, I'll speak more about this as we go on. This is not my
Okay.
time to speak,
Okay.
but.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to address the board? Okay, step up to the microphone, please.
Jason Dilworth, 6 Bryant Place. And it's in connection with the forestry and logging plan. Since I've been a resident of Fredonia, I've seen a marked decrease in the amount of street trees around that also sort of reflect. And I'm curious, and I think that if this logging goes through, very little has gone into thinking about how climate change is going to affect it. Leaving trees in place is better for the planet, better for our watershed, and I really think we should consider stopping that if we are able to.
Okay, sir, I'm sorry, did we get your name, please?
Yes.
You got it? Okay, thank you. Hello.
Hi, I'm Gina Crone, resident of Fredonia, 106 Clinton Avenue, also a business owner. And I'm also here to speak on the logging of the trees at the reservoir. I don't know really a lot about it, and I guess I'm a little concerned that the public and the citizens of Fredonia and the surrounding area really didn't know that this was happening. We don't know much about it, and I'd like to learn more about the whys. You know, why are we cutting down healthy trees? Why are we risking potentially our water source? Why are we disturbing wildlife habitats in a wetland? You know, and I think that the citizens really need to know a little bit more about why. And I understand that you have a plan, but again, I'm not sure, you know, if they're profiting from that or not. But I think that we really should kind of delve in a little bit more as to why this is happening, why we feel it necessary, and why we're spending money, you know, to do all of the plans and things like that if it's not even necessary. But again, I don't know that much about it, but I do know that trees do filter water and they protect the reservoir with the runoff and all of that, and the erosion. So I just wanted to say that I really feel like before you move ahead, you need to do a little bit more research, and I guess we need a little bit more public input on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we got two here.
Good evening.
Hi.
Mark Twitchell, Temple Street, Fredonia. I've looked through the whereases of the proposed logging resolution, and the one whereas I don't see is whereas the Village of Fredonia and or the contracted forest management company, now known as Forcon, has applied the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act to this. And as you're hearing tonight from a lot of citizens wondering, you know, about various risks and hazards, I did not know that there was a forestry plan, you know, filed particularly for this project. I'm very happy to hear that that has been done. However, the secret process allows for a democratic input. Had we, did the village board actually make a declaration on the project, or has Forcon indicated in their plan that they have complied with the, you know, the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act? I'm heartened to hear that the board recognizes that this is a critical environmental area, which is one of the designations that you'll find in your seeker handbook. But again, so many questions that could easily be answered by a due process of a public hearing that would follow a seeker declaration. So I don't believe it's too late for any of the agencies, either the village board or FORCON, to actually publish a seeker review. And as a matter of fact, if indeed FORCON finds that there are no adverse environmental impacts, it is their obligation, and I do believe it's the village board's obligation as well, to state so publicly, so that going forward, everybody recognizes and their record is clear that this was considered and that it was found to be not worthy of our concern. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello, I'm Margaret Urban of Bryant Place. I am speaking on the forestry or the lumber. Sorry, it's been a very long day. But what I was curious about was, again, in addition to all the things that have been mentioned, one of the things that when we went through the boil water, I decided to try to understand what was going on and what had led up to this point. And in the process, I found the Chautauqua County Department of Health and Human Services 2016 Inspection and Needs Assessment, which was PWSID hashtag New York 0600364. And in this paper, they stated that 5 feet of sediment was deposited in the reservoir between 1964 and 1972, with 75% of that coming from one storm, which was Hurricane Agnes. This came from FEMA. And that ongoing erosion processes had also deposited large amounts of sediment. 1965, 1972, 1999, and 2001, there were supposed to be dredging projects, but they were never completed. There is a total amount of water available for use that is unknown. We don't know how much water is in there. And there was a, O'Brien and Gear was to complete a new bathymetric survey in 2016. I requested a copy of the survey from the I guess the clerk's office. I didn't get it. Most likely it was because this was during COVID and everybody was on short staff. So I guess what I'm saying is that it seems like, given that our problems are dealing with siltation, our problems are dealing with filling up, we are going to have increasingly unruly weather. We're going to have more and more heavy rain events. And we have something that is a dam that is in danger of overtopping that dates back to the 1979, I believe it was, study. I have the paperwork. So that's going to increase the chance of overtopping. And I guess what I'm saying is I understand that there has been a survey, but lots of things have changed within the past 5 years or so in terms of our understanding and predictions of what's going to happen to our forests and what's going to happen to our weather. So I am very concerned with the fact that we are taking away one of the guaranteed ways of reducing siltation and reducing runoff by harvesting forests and harvesting the forests around it. And I don't understand why we're taking that chance. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Hi.
I'm Jonathan Townsend. I live on Glasgow Road in the town of Pomfret. I'm a PhD student at the University of Buffalo, and I sit on the steering committee for the Western New York Partnership for Regional Invasive Species Management. And I've also worked with the Chautauqua County Forest Pest Task Force, where I worked with people from FORCON and that entity. I mention these experiences so I can stress my concerns based on professional experience dating back nearly 2 decades and involving in land management and land conservation. Timber harvest result in unavoidable issues with erosion, soil compaction, and other environmental impacts, even with the most carefully planned harvest conducted by the most skilled forestry professionals. At a site like the village's reservoir, timber harvests are ill-advised based on the predominant land use of that property, water filtration, and protection of the village's drinking water supply that serves several thousand people. Given the issues with water quality that the village has had in recent years, even the most stringent of mitigation measures may not be enough to prevent negative impacts to the public drinking water supply from this timber harvest. When the steep slopes and sensitive soils of the reservoir are kept in mind, the impact resulting from the extraction of timber would very likely exacerbate these issues. In fact, in a 1980 report authored by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, they advised against removal of trees from these steep slopes. This erosion and siltation, at a minimum, will increase the cost of providing clean drinking water to the village, which reduces the overall net revenue that a timber harvest may generate. But the reservoir is a special place for many other reasons aside from drinking water. The mature forest found there house sensitive wildflower communities, flowers that I personally have only seen in a few other places in the region. This place is a biological gem. These forests also provide habitat for many species of animal, and these are interior forest species that lack healthy mature forest elsewhere in the region. There's only a few places like this that they can go. A harvest would not only directly impact these communities, it would open the canopy and allow invasive species to thrive. The introduction of noxious invasive species would then reduce the overall forest health by hampering forest regeneration and reducing biodiversity, and that also translates to degraded timber revenue over time. These costs need to be considered alongside the potential for revenue from one timber sale. Instead of a timber harvest, the village should consider approaches that preserve this forest intact while still providing revenue to the municipality. I have 2 programs as an example. Forest Carbon Works is a program where landowners get annual payments for the carbon sequestration services that intact forests provide without any timber harvest taking place. And it's documented in the literature that mature forests like those found at the reservoir provide greater sequestration benefits, which means more money to the village. The United States Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service has a program called the Conservation Stewardship Program, which is a federal program where the government provides payments to incentivize landowners like the village to maintain their healthy forests.
Excuse me, Jonathan, that's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Could you please conclude?
These aren't the only options. There are other methods of generating money for the village that don't risk the community's drinking water or destroy high-quality ecosystems. I ask that you reconsider this timber sale and vote no on the motion at hand, and I'm available for any questions you may have, and I'm happy to help the village pursue these if you guys seek to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board, please? Go to the microphone. Hi.
I'm a shorty. Patty Valentine, 29 West Main Street. I am a business owner of Lady of the Lake and a Spot and a Spell downtown. And Mr. Dreo, would you like me to speak? Sure. Okay. So Mr. Dreo and I, as lovely as downtown is looking, and we're happy to have the re-beautification going on. However, the businesses are suffering. My business is down 75% since construction has started. And Mr. Dreo and I are very concerned about the parking. And there's a few factors at play here. We're losing parking spaces around our building. And that's why I was going to ask a question earlier about they referred to the bump out, and I believe that we're going to lose more parking up front. Second of all, last year they did a crosswalk where we did lose a space in front of our building, and I have a bird's eye view. That crosswalk reconstruction did nothing for the safety of people. There are people that are almost getting hit by a car 2, 3, 4 times a day because they're forced to park behind John's and cross the street to come over to One Park Place. And thank you to whoever put the do not enter sign up the one-way street on Center, because we have had on multiple occasions 2, 3, 4, 5 cars a day coming up the wrong way street. I personally have almost gotten hit by a car 4 or 5 times. But I do believe that there needs to be more signage, because the people coming out of the parking lot are still going up the wrong way. So main concerns are the parking that our businesses are losing, the safety, forcing everybody to cross the street and using the crosswalk and that one-way street. Also, I am not here to promote my own business. However, I'm just looking for the village to support our local businesses, please. I've done a lot of volunteer work. Mayor Essex knows we've done a lot to support the police departments, the fire departments, and on Veterans Day, it is not a political statement. We will be folding 13 flags for the fallen soldiers in Kabul, and we will be doing that in conjunction with the American Legion. So any support that the village can do to come out and support this, I would greatly appreciate it. We need to support the people defending this country and our villages. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarification, I think the crosswalks that cross Route 20 were a state project, and that was not part of that, our placemaking project. So, I mean, just to let you know.
And we are hoping to get pedestrian activated crosswalk lights at some point.
Eventually, yes, but there's a lot of crosswalks, and a lot of them appear to be somewhat dangerous. I agree with you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board? Yes, sir.
Sam Drayo, village resident. I've tried to keep this to 3 pages, 1 minute each.
Okay.
If I go over, I apologize. A question came up at the last meeting concerning the applicability of the open meetings law to the advisory board or team. There are at least 3 opinions from the New York State Committee on Open Government on the subject. They all state that advisory boards consisting of members who are not members of the public body, having no power to take final action, are generally not subject to the open meetings law. However, these opinions also state that where the advisory board is established by law and has a continual existence and performs a governmental function, especially where it is established as part of the village charter for the purpose of advising the municipality, the open meetings law applies. An opinion from the New York State Committee on Open Government states, in sum, because the workshop group, this is a different group but similar to the advisory group, is a creation of law, it is required by law to focus on governmental tasks and is required to carry out a governmental function based upon the direction of court decisions, it would appear that this constitutes a public body required to comply with the open meetings law. It's clear from this opinion and other opinions from the New York State Committee on Open Government that the Village Advisory Board is subject to the open meetings law, and the public and the news media must be notified of any meeting of the advisory board. On another subject, there's a resolution on the agenda authorizing the mayor to sign a contract, which is not in existence, for the sale of timber at the village reservoir to the highest bidder. Although the resolution omits the location of the timber, I assume it is the village reservoir area. As I said, there is presently no contract drafted for this board to review and approve, although there's a resolution on the books tonight to approve it. The resolution should be tabled. No contract should be approved by the village board until it's in its final form and reviewed and approved by resolution of the village board. A logging operation on the village watershed area can cause serious damage to the village watershed if not controlled, monitored, and protective language for the village included in the contract. The money received by the village is not the sole determining factor in awarding a contract to sell timber. Of primary importance is the reputation of the logging company, its financial stability, and its ability to do a good job without damage to the watershed. All this must be carefully reviewed before awarding a contract for the sale of timber. Forcon can be of help in this, and I think Professor Titus and other members here can also be of help. But they must review this contract carefully and review what's the contract, the reputation of the contract, and the terms of the contract. I've been involved with 3 logging operations at the Village Reservoir. The contract language to protect the village and watershed and the reputation and financial stability of the logging company are very important to review, not just the sale price. This resolution should be tabled.
That's 3 minutes, Sam.
Mayor, I'd like to continue on because these are important subjects concerning the village as a whole. CEQA review would have to be done. There's also a resolution. There's also another matter that's come up.
Okay,
Let me please
hold on.
finish.
Let him conclude, please.
The village has allowed the construction by the M&T Bank of a large wall and other structures in front of its bank building, creating a substantial obstruction to our village Main Street sidewalk. This major intrusion on a public sidewalk is against our village ordinance and should be removed as soon as possible. Public sidewalks are for the use of pedestrian traffic. The bank did remove from its building entrance the one step that it had into the bank from the sidewalk. Thus, there's no longer any obstacle. Will the village allow other merchants on Main Street to construct obstructions on the sidewalk? The village board should the village board allow sidewalks in residential areas to be obstructed? So I would suggest that the M&T Bank be asked to remove that obstruction as soon as possible from in front of its bank.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Seeing as though there's no one else to address the board, I'll close this public portion. Correspondence, please.
Correspondence dated October 15th, 2021 was received from the Applied Communication Association, ACA, notifying the village of the annual fall sweep taking place on November 6th, 2021. All groups on campus are encouraged to join together in our annual leaf raking event. We will be raking lawns in our Fredonia community as a volunteer project, as well as building a better relationship with the residents of Fredonia. This is a great way for group bonding for all SA groups, athletic teams, residence halls, or just any group of friends. I am emailing to inform the Village of Fredonia and Public Works Department of this event in order to pick up leaves we rake. I assume the event will end around 1 p.m. If the mayor is available to give a short speech, around 2 minutes, to get the students excited to go out into the community, that would be great. Registration and breakfast will be at 9:30 in the Williams Center multipurpose room, followed by a ceremony at 10, preceding the sweep. The leaf raking will then start at 10:30 a.m. Thank you for your time, Aaron Vaughn. Correspondence dated October 18th, 2021 was received from Wayne Youngins. Fredonia Trustees, I wish to express my objection to a dispensary for marijuana in the Village of Fredonia. The taxpayers of the village do not need more problems with drug usage by irresponsible people. The revenue will not cover the cost of the added problems. Why should the village government encourage such behavior? Please consider letting other local government groups try to deal with the location traffic usage problems. Sincerely, Wayne Youngins. Correspondence dated October 19th, 2021 was received from Judy Lutz Woods. Dear Mayor Essick and Board of Trustees, I thank you for allowing the public to comment on the issue of marijuana dispensary in our village. Although I did speak, I wanted to add more information for your consideration. As I have stated in the public hearing, I have been to all 3 dispensaries in Buffalo many times over for the past 4 years. My husband used medical marijuana to address complications from cancer and the effect of chemo on his body. All 3 dispensaries were highly secure. They all have guards or security folks on duty. It is my impression that the company, not the village, would be responsible for security at any dispensary that may open in our village. To enter, you had to show your card that is issued by the state. It was very professional. It appeared to me some at the hearing had visions of druggies and junkies hanging out by the dispensary. Nothing could be further from the truth, including the dispensary in downtown Buffalo where you might expect it. All of them were quiet and very organized, like any major doctor or professional office. I think others have given you information on the revenue the village could make on the tax. Jobs would also be created. However, in addition to all the economic reasons why we should permit dispensaries here, I hope the service to those of us who use medical marijuana for medical issues is not lost. It was a great hardship on my family when we had to drive an hour up and an hour back just to get my husband the needed medication. I personally know at least 10 other people, all seniors, by the way, who have been prescribed marijuana as an alternative to opioids that are habit-forming. Their conditions range from severe anxiety to stage 4 cancer. It is powerful, yet non-addictive. I hope the trustees will keep us in mind as they vote on this issue. Those of us who rely on medical marijuana should have a resource to get it closer to than an hour. Many of these people are actually in the stage of dying. Anything to help ease the challenge I think the village should do. Thank you for taking the needs of the ill elderly in your community in mind as you vote. Sincerely, Judy Lutz Woods. That's all the correspondence I have.
Thank you. I just have a couple of items of interest to report tonight. First, public service announcement. Starting on October 27th, 2021, we need to include our 716 area code when dialing, plus the 7-digit phone number in order to make local telephone calls. This transition to a 10-digit dialing system was made in order to adopt 988 as the 3-digit dialing code for National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. For more information concerning this change, please check out our local telephone provider website at www.dftcommunications.com for more information. I want to thank our local Partners in Kind group for their October 23rd event held at the fairgrounds for a kind of scared at the fair event. My wife and I attended, and it was a great event for our area kids to participate in, and donations were collected for future service programs that the group sponsors. It was a win-win event for all. I attended the monthly meeting of the Northern Chautauqua Club Associates. The meeting was held at the Beaver Club here in Fredonia, and many local clubs attended, including our local VFWs and many social clubs in our area. There was great food, and I spent time with club members and officers from our surrounding communities and discussed club events upcoming in our area. Our local club, the Beaver Club, is a big sponsor of local, not charity, but local club and organizational needs that they donate things to, things like scoreboards for our school, for the Little League complex and so forth. So they do a lot for our community, and we thank them. I want to take a moment to recognize First Responders Day last week. These people are the ones that help you in your time of need, and I want to thank them and tell them how much I appreciate their efforts, skills, and dedication. Believe me, you never know when you may need them, and I honor them, and especially want to shout out to our Fredonia firemen and Fredonia police. We have the best there is in our village. The first annual Trunk or Treat event was held last Saturday at Russell Joy Park. There were some very creative trunks and stations, and our new Parks and Recreations Director, Kayla Sullivan, did a fantastic job organizing this event, and I want to say kudos to Kayla for a great job working on this. She brought in many of the elements of our annual Halloween parade, including the local dance studios performing, collage and danza, the Fredonia High School band performance, and a lot of generous people who handed out so many goodies to local kids. The costumes were fantastic and the crowd was big. It was a great event for everybody involved. I want to thank our Fredonia trustees and employees and all who participated or attended and helped make this event a good one. The Halloween trick-or-treating was yesterday, and I did get quite a lot of feedback that the length of the trick-or-treating hours was too long, leading to many more than normal amounts of kids parking on both sides of the street with concerns about emergency vehicle access, and so many kids, even with the lights turned off, still going to doors trick-or-treating. We certainly will need to consider this in scheduling next year's hours. Lastly, tomorrow's election day. If you have not already voted, I encourage everyone to exercise your right to vote. Decisions made at the polls tomorrow will show us about the future of Fredonia, and I encourage you all to vote tomorrow. Thank you. Trustee Linden?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I too did receive a number of calls about the length of time for the Halloween on Sunday. I know that there wasn't any complaints or discussion ahead of time from that would have been lead us to believe we couldn't have longer time on a Sunday, but There were some complaints, so they asked us to remember that for next year. I did receive a lot of concerns from the community about the forest management at the reservoir. I'm going to ask that possibly if, when it comes to the time tonight, that our trustees table that resolution, and maybe that we could have a public hearing, so that possibly that someone from Forcon could come and explain to the public, so that they could understand, have a little more understanding of the what's going into that project before we make any further decision on that. I also might ask that we consider tabling the resolution for the water contract with the SUNY system, because I haven't seen the resolution is based on a draft contract. I haven't seen the final contract, as the trustee Britz explained in the workshop, that the contract was at that time was still with the state attorneys, and it would. He said that he didn't know when we would get it back. I haven't seen the final contract, so I'd ask that be tabled also when we get there. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Britz.
Just a couple of quick things. I'm happy to report that, seeing on tonight's agenda, that we do have a contract negotiation with the Fredonia Professional Firefighters Association that we've been working on for a few months now, spending some time with them, and we've come to, seems to be a pretty nice agreement between the village and the professional firefighters. Some of the other contracts that we've negotiated, obviously Trustee Linden pointed out the one with the water supply and the sewer. I understand your concerns, and I will also move to table that so you have the proper information to review.
Thank you.
I also like to say that I'm happy to report that the Village of Fredonia and the Town of Pomfret have come to an agreement with the fire protection, which was another contract that came in within 2 months of its expiration date. So I think that was a pretty good negotiating skills that we all worked hard to accomplish. Just want to reach out to Kayla also and congratulate her on a very successful event with the trunk and treat. The cherub's going to be placed, the new cherub will be placed in the village on this Saturday at 9 a.m. if anyone's interested in seeing Chubby the cherub show up and put back on his pedestal. And I'm also working with Alyssa and Chris, some water plant projects that we could possibly use with the COVID funding to do some proactive repairs to some of the backwash pumps while we're kind of in a slow mode right now. So I know Alyssa and I have been working on some projects. Hopefully we could do some repairs at the plant on some of the smaller pumps so that we don't have any issues in the spring or next summer. I'm also going to be meeting with DFT on Wednesday to review the cameras and security measures that we're looking to do at the reservoir, and I'll have an update at our next workshop. That's all I have today.
Hey, Trustee Fritz, what time on Saturday was it?
9 a.m.
9
is
a.m.
scheduled to.
All right, thank you. Trustee Bashaw.
I too would like to congratulate Kayla on her first event. It was wonderful. This was our first trunk or treat, and it was amazing. I'd also like to thank the neighborhood surrounding Russell Joy Park, because I know they had to tolerate a lot of parking that may have, blocked up their street a little bit, but there was a tremendous turnout, both with the treats and with the kids, and I think that it was a wonderful event. And congratulations to Kayla. We had a lot of fun. Even in the rain, we had a lot of fun. So we are proceeding with interviews. We've been holding interviews for police chief. We have a couple of other positions open in the village. In regard to personnel, I think we're looking for a part-time police officer, a position at water treatment. So make sure you look. If people are looking for jobs, check on the village website or give the village a call. And wanted to keep you up to date on the personnel. As for tonight's resolution with Forcon, first of all, we did have Forcon. I don't know if you were aware of it, but we had Forcon come, and 2 representatives came and made a presentation to the board to answer questions and to explain to the public. It was televised. I don't think that there are very many people here, but they...
It's June 3rd, 2019. They can look on YouTube.
Right. They came again,
Yes.
just this past summer, and explained again. So they've been here twice to explain the project and what was involved. If we need to have them come again, they are willing to. I spoke with Rick Constantino today. They'd be happy to come and answer any questions again if they need to. I think the public needs to know we spoke about that in August. We presented a resolution and passed it in August to proceed. We signed a contract with them on September 30th. And that this resolution is simply a resolution that allows them to accept the highest bid. They asked us, because they're doing the bidding process. So it's not the contract, that's already done. It's not the plan, that's already done. This is simply a resolution to give Forcon the ability to accept the highest bid. So if you're confused about tonight's resolution, that's what it's about. I just want to give you that heads up. I too would like to encourage everyone to vote. Vote in the best interest of the village. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Johnston.
Just one issue, I guess. I'm not sure if we're able to do it or not, but I would like to reconsider whether we do logging at the reservoir at all. Though I realize that might be too late for that.
Again, if you read the report, I think, Scott, it might answer some of your questions. It's not like we're going in there and stripping the reservoir of all the trees.
I know that.
It's a management program that we've used for many years, and it follows the guidelines that we need to follow. So again, I think, like Trustee Bashaw just said, it's basically tonight's resolution is just authorizing Forcon to start looking at bids and accepting the bids. It's still the final decision of the trustees to accept those bids and the process that those contractors are going to provide.
And the logging company.
Correct.
Right.
Because I understand that that's what the resolution is about. However, I would like to be able to reconsider the entire logging idea.
Again, this would be something we'd have to discuss.
Yeah,
Alyssa, would there be a penalty if we decide to scrap the project?
There was no discussion about it. It's just that at this point, going forward, we just approved it unanimously last month.
I didn't have the information then that I have now.
Well,
And-
we've always had this information.
No,
Scott.
not that. I mean,
Well-
I heard from a number of people today who have
Right.
expertise in the area and whose opinions I trust, and so I want to
I get it.
reconsider.
Well, we can talk about that. It's a
If we don't
contractual
make it-
issue.
I mean, if we don't go up to bid, that kind of holds it at a standstill to get that information.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so it's,
I think that it's a contractual thing. We can talk about that, and I think that that's something we can discuss. As far as an outcome goes, I'm not sure where we're at. I do think that there are benefits to logging. I think that there have some pros and cons to them, of course. I managed Girl Scout property for years, and without a successful management program, we would not have healthy forests. We're not talking about clear cutting. Those big trees are going to fall down and rot and decay and end up in the reservoir anyway. And I think that we need to discuss all of those implications, and I suggest strongly that we bring Forcon back to answer those questions.
Mhm.
If you still have them, we need to talk to them.
okay, right. I think that's fine.
It's acceptable. I just think, as your village government or any government, the revenue, and no matter what it is, whatever subject we talk about, revenue shouldn't be the bottom line,
Yeah, it's
No,
not.
whether
I
it's
agree.
this or anything else that
Yeah.
we're speaking of. There's always costs to things. There's the devil's in the detail. And revenue is not always the bottom line. Unfortunately, we make the revenue sources and revenue from different things the bottom line, and that's the only thing, and we really shouldn't do that. So I would suggest to the board maybe to, I realize,
And again, we haven't had Chris Surma, who's our chief operator at the plant and knows our reservoir quite well. Maybe his input at the next workshop, if we decide to table this, he could also enlighten the public of some of his.
Yeah,
And I think
it's
this might give
important.
the public some time to gather the information that they're requesting tonight from our village here, whether it's the information from the contractor or any other information that they need regarding our water studies. The O'Brien and Gear, we should be able to provide that. There was, I forgot who asked for that. It does, back in 2019, let us know what our capacity was of the reservoir and different things of that nature, the questions you were asking. So we can always provide the public with all the information that we're provided with these engineering studies, and maybe that would, shed some light to the concern that the public has, and we can move forward with this. But the revenues, I'm learning now, isn't always the bottom line in getting things done, no matter what it is. So.
And I think the plan, Doug, is not, I mean, the revenues certainly don't warrant.
I get that,
Yeah.
I get that,
But it's a healthy forest situation, not a revenue.
We get clouded by revenue sources and getting revenue in from whatever project or plan or action that we need to take action on, so.
And can there be more, if it should get to the point of another resolution, that there would be more detail in the resolution?
All right. Is that all, Trustee Johnston?
Yes.
Thank you.
You need to take over.
Additional reports, please.
Can I just remind the public that
Oh,
there's
I'm
a
sorry.
that's okay,
Yes,
there's
go
a
ahead.
meeting tomorrow. Joy Kubler will be here at the gazebo. I believe Travis
Can you
said
tell us what
something.
Joy Kubler's title is and what her function is?
She
Project
owns an
manager,
architect, she owns an
engineer.
architect firm that we hired
So
to
she's the architecture firm that created
design,
the plans,
I believe
that
so.
designed the
Yes.
park project.
Yes,
Yes.
and there will be a meeting tomorrow at the gazebo for public
Right.
questions. So,
Right.
if you have any concerns about parking, anything, you should go
Right.
there and, yeah.
And Joy is the one that we should be addressing those questions
Right.
to. Yes.
I think he said 11:30.
In public at 12:30.
The public's at 1, I'm sorry.
1.
1.
Yeah, the
Yes,
contractor
the
meeting.
The gazebo, yes.
I'm sorry, Ann, I should have
okay.
had you and Alyssa, if nothing more. Ann, do you have anything to report? Okay, now if we would please move to additional.
Fredonia Fire Department report for the month of September 2021. Total fire for rescue and EMS, 152. Hazardous conditions, no fire, 9. Service calls, 10. Good intent calls, 8. False alarm and false call, 34. Severe weather and natural disasters, 2, for a grand total of 219. And that's the only report I have.
Thank you. Move on to resolutions, please.
Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia is in receipt of collective bargaining agreement with the Fredonia Professional Firefighters Association effective June 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2025, is set forth in Attachment 1. And whereas the terms of the collective bargaining agreement were previously reviewed by the board, and whereas the terms of the tentative agreement have now been incorporated into the collective bargaining agreement and have been presented to the Board of Trustees by council, and such terms are recommended to be approved by the board. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approves the terms and conditions set forth in the collective bargaining agreement with the Fredonia Professional Firefighters Association effective June 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2025, and authorizes the mayor to execute the same on behalf of the village.
I second that.
It's been motion and second. Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Britz?
Yes.
Trustee Bashaw?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston? Carried.
This next resolution, should it be removed?
Is removed. And so moving on to the next one, whereas Civiletto Properties, Inc., George Civiletto claimants filed a notice of claim against the village dated March 3rd, 2021 and April 20th, 2021, seeking to recover for damages, and whereas the claim has been investigated by the village, and whereas the parties wish to settle and resolve all matters and issues with regard to alleged property damage to the real property located at 450 East Main Street, Village of Fredonia, County of Chautauqua, State of New York, the property for the purpose of avoiding the uncertainty and expense of litigation and for various business reasons and consideration. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the village hereby authorizes payment of $14,580 to the claimants in exchange for a release of all claims for property and damages to the property. Be it further resolved that the village treasurer is hereby authorized to issue payment in the amount of $14,580 to claimants upon receipt of executed release from claimants in a form approved by village council.
I'll second that resolution.
There's been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Britz.
Yes.
Trustee Bashaw.
Yes.
Trustee Johnston.
Yes.
Carried.
Make a motion that the next resolution be tabled.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second for the resolution here to, with Forcon, to be tabled. Trustee Linden.
Could we table it for a public hearing possibly?
It's not a public hearing
It's
issue.
not a public hearing.
No, we'll just have a,
Table for reconsideration.
correct.
Okay.
You're just tabling it at this point. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Britz.
Yes.
Trustee Bashaw.
Reluctantly, yes.
Trustee Johnston.
Yes.
Carried.
I move to table the next resolution on the SUNY Fredonia water contract.
I second that.
There's been a motion and a second to table the SUNY Fredonia contract resolution. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Britz.
Yes.
Trustee Bashaw.
Yes.
Trustee Johnston.
Yes.
Carried.
Whereas the proposed agreement between the Village of Fredonia and the Town of Pomfret has been presented to this board, which agreement is for the purpose of providing fire protection to the Town of Pomfret Fire Protection District Number 1 by the Village of Fredonia as set forth in said agreement. And whereas the proposed agreement shall be for a 3-year period commencing January 1st, 2022 and ending at midnight, December 31st, 2024. And whereas the proposed agreement provides that the Town of Pomfret pays the Village of Fredonia for said services in the following. Year 2022, $418,634 payable as followed: $355,839 on March 1st of 2022 and $62,795 on August 1st of 2022. Year 2023, $410,249 payable as follows, with $348,712 on March 1st of 2023 and $61,537 on August 1st of 2023. Year 2024, $399,396 payable on the following: $339,487 on March 1st of 2024 and $59,909 on August 1st of 2024. And whereas the Town of Pomfret has agreed to provide the flushing, maintenance, repair, and replacement of the fire hydrants in the fire district. And whereas the Fredonia Volunteer Fire Department will receive 17.5% of the annual payment for their services, and the village shall set aside 17.5% of said payment for fire apparatus purposes, upon joint approval of the Village Board of Trustees and the Fredonia Volunteer Fire Department. And whereas the Fredonia Volunteer Fire Department, at its meeting held on October 27, 2021, has approved and proposed agreement, and now, therefore, be it resolved that said agreement is hereby approved and the mayor is hereby authorized to sign said agreement on behalf of the Village of Fredonia, contingent upon approval by the Town of Pomfret.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Britz.
Yes.
Trustee Bashaw.
Yes.
Trustee Johnston.
Yes.
Carried.
Whereas the village requires additional funding in the amount of up to $1,380,360 for the wastewater treatment plant project. And whereas the village has the necessary amount available in the sewer reserve fund, and be it resolved that the village board hereby authorizes up to $1,380,360 from the sewer reserve fund to be used in the funding of the wastewater treatment plant project until funding is provided by the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation.
I just want to clarify that this funding is required because of the application in 2019 for EFC funding that the board had previously approved wasn't followed through on, and that this funding is needed to pay the contractors, and that our village treasurer has verified that it would be approved. It's just going to take a few months to make this go through. how that happened, I don't know, but we need to make this approval tonight, so I will say aye. I second it.
Question.
Go ahead.
Erlissa, we know that this happened in 2019. It was before many of our times. How long? We've heard varying lengths of time. We've heard it could take a year or more. We've heard it could take a couple months. Have we received an answer in regard to that?
From EFC, we did. It will take 3 months from the time that they approve the scope of the project. So they're just waiting on that from the engineers. And as soon as they receive that, they'll start going through their approval process for that.
And Municipal Solutions, was this a responsibility of theirs?
Should have been, in part, yes.
And the timeline that we heard from Municipal Solutions was over a year, correct?
January 2023.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other discussion on this? There's been a motion and a second. Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Bretz?
Yes.
Trustee Bashaw?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston? Carried. Gosh, I hope we don't need to go into executive session for anything tonight.
We do.
We do.
All right.
I make a motion to enter an executive session to discuss employee issues relating to the DPW, building inspector's office, and water treatment plant,
And fire.
and fire department.
Is there a second to that?
Shouldn't take too long.
I'm sorry, did somebody second that?
Yeah, I think Jim did.
No, I didn't.
Oh, didn't? I second.
Why,
it.
Matt?
Okay.
Then- I
Okay,
thought he
there's been a
did.
motion and a second to enter executive session for those purposes. Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Bretz?
Yes.
Trustee Bashaw?
Yes.
Trustee Johnston? Carried.